All right, friends, welcome back to another episode of The Hang. I'm Philip Bershad, again here with Dennis Delpome. Today we're going to be talking about our sateen wall coverings. Dennis, these are chic, they're sophisticated, I love the sheen. Tell us some tips that we need to know about this wall covering.
Okay, first of all, it's delicate in the sense that you have to be very careful. You don't want to get any paste on the surface, you don't want dirty hands, you don't want to get it wet. It's really a very clean type of installation, first of all. Secondly to that, there are different methods that you would use with sateen as far as the paste, as far as what you do to the wall. It's very smooth, so you need the wall to be very smooth as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Dennis mentioned that, one, it has a sheen to it. So as you guys know, anytime there's a sheen, we have to be careful because it's going to have a light reflective quality to it. And also, when you have a fine surface like this, any imperfections in the wall are really going to telegraph out, right?
Right.
You were talking about the best way to get a good adhesion on this. What are some of the tips?
Well, the best adhesive to use on this, and I don't imagine someone would use a clay, has to be a clear adhesive. And you really want to use an adhesive with a little bit more moisture to it than, say, a clay or some of the really, really dry clear adhesives, because you want to be able to paste it. You want the material to expand, because that's another characteristic of the material, so that you can paste it, it'll expand, and then you can put it to the wall totally relaxed. It's expanded to its fullest width. At that point, it has a tendency not to shrink back, which is something that can happen with this if you don't take certain precautions. The other thing I like to do is I put paste on the wall where the seam's going to be. And the reason I do that, and I let that dry, mainly because it's going to give me some tackiness right there. And what happens when I put the pieces together, they're going to tend to stay that way.
So I just want to clarify, we're still putting adhesive on the back like a traditional hang, but Dennis is also putting additional adhesive on the wall where he's measured out the seams.
Exactly.
You're going to put the adhesive on the seams, let that dry first, then put the adhesive on the booked wall covering. So this will still be a little moist when that goes up. Is that correct?
Right, and then what actually happens is the wet paste on the back of that, even though I let it dry on the wall, is going to reactivate that, the paste that's on the wall, and it becomes very sticky. So
tool-wise, sometimes people will use the wooden rollers or the scrapers. What's the best tool to use for a high sheen, beautiful textile like this?
Well, the reason not to use a seam roller is because it will crush these fibers. And the effect of that is it shows up as a light line.
Yeah, it will almost look like stripes or fading shadows in each seam, right?
Right. The other thing is you want to use a soft brush as opposed to a smoother, the plastic or a metal broad knife or something like that, and use the brush because it's soft.
So Dennis, also, this wall covering you mentioned earlier has some expansion to it. So if the walls are not in the best shape, because again, we said this, is so high sheen, it might telegraph any imperfections in the wall, or if they're having a hard time with expansion and potentially the material contracting, what's the best use? Do we use a lining paper?
A lining paper serves two purposes. The one you mentioned, which is to make the walls smooth, and by smooth I mean uniform. You could have a paint stipple and a spackle line that are two different textures on the wall. Believe it or not, they'll show through that.
Right.
A liner will just unify the surface. You'll get one smooth surface. The other thing that's very important with this material, with a liner, is the liner absorbs moisture. So what that tends to do is take moisture from the sheet, and what it leaves is the tackiness. So it would tend to set the seam so that it won't pull back. Probably more important than anything.
So great tips. One, we're going to be extra careful when we're working with the sateen, making sure you don't get anything on the surface. Two, we want to really make sure that you're using the right tools, right? Everybody, we're going to use the brush, is what I heard you here. Stay away from those rollers or hard tools. 3, we're going to allow some extra for the expansion. We're going to be careful, and if we do get a lot of expansion, we're going to use the lining paper, and that could be a good tool, especially if the walls aren't great. And 4, maybe even before you get to the lining paper, we're going to sometimes put a little extra adhesive on the wall. So between the tools, the little extra adhesive on the wall, the lining paper, I think we're going to do a great job, or you all are going to do a great job with installation on the Sateen.